Uh,
Apologies.
no worries. Yeah, and that's kind of where I began my visual effects career. Out of school, I was at LucasArts and then did games for a bit, and then worked on the Matrix sequels for a bit, and then the bulk of my time in visual effects was spent at DreamWorks Animation. Worked on a few movies, supervised one Puss in Boots, I think, the first one. Actually, in character effects, I kind of sidestepped from visual effects into character effects for a minute. Um, and then yeah, so I was there for about 13 years or so, and uh, kind of I we can talk about it more, but basically I pivoted a little bit and got into product design, and that's what I've been doing since. I've worked at uh, big companies, small companies, some boring projects, to be honest, some really interesting ones. Um, and now I'm currently at a place called Glideways. They do uh, it's a startup doing autonomous public transit, and it's you'd think it's kind of would be a serious departure from my visual effects roots and movies and animation roots, but it's actually not. I My particular role allows me to kind of flex all those skills that I had, and even kind of be creative in that original space of VFX. I get to do. I'm in Unreal, like rigging up stuff for prototypes. I'm setting up like physical prototypes with connecting Arduinos and LED light strips and audio and screens and stuff so that we can do user research on some of the experiences, as well as just kind of straight up product design like UIs and Figma and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that kind of brings me to now. It's been a kind of a non-linear ride, but it's been amazing, and I love kind of how it's all kind of come together.
That's awesome. Like, do you feel like so the skills and things that you used in your more animation side, or like at DreamWorks and such have kind of transferred well, like with product design, would you say? Like a lot of those
Oh
things
yeah.
you learned there and used there have transferred?
Yeah, 100%. Like some of them literally, like
Yeah.
literally, doing like rigging things and doing like kind of sometimes putting
Yes.
like what would you call like effects on the visuals that I have to create for,
Hmm.
to communicate an idea or a concept to
Hmm.
somebody.
Yeah.
And then also just kind of more abstractly, like the the marriage of art and
Hmm.
technology, or and well, not even technology, but like art and
Hmm.
science and math with a bit of programming, and the
Hmm.
rigging of things can get really technical. Um,
Hmm.
all the problem solving skills are very transferable.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it's you know sometimes I when I tell people like the my kind of story, the one of the first questions is like kind of like that, like was that like a big, like, is it hard transition, was like this gap like a huge learning curve, and it kind of wasn't.
Hmm.
It was just kind of came from a design place, an art place, a technical place, and
Hmm.
it wasn't so bad.
That's awesome. That's good to hear just because a lot of students like they feel like they have to focus on like one thing and they can't divert, I feel like, or like is that they can't branch out when a lot of the stuff we learn can be used in like you wouldn't think it, but like even I'm sure even in product design it's telling a story a bit and selling a story and like
100%,
even
yeah.
in that way it's just different, it's just a different type of like storytelling, I guess.
Yeah, that's
If you
actually
say
that's
yeah.
one of the I just like a personality trait of mine. Like I
Mhm.
just kind of drift towards like the like solving problems and the complexity of things and the technical things as well as the art. And
Mhm.
my boss, he keeps me honest and is always kind of coming from a story place. Tell the story, especially when it comes
Mhm.
to like, well, I mean, you can still draw the connection in, games or movies or stuff like that. Like there's
Mhm.
the end. consumer is like a regular person, right? And they care about the story. They don't really care about like how you arrived at it exactly. So it's always kind of good to keep them in mind. And he keeps me honest and makes me remember, oh yeah, I'm doing this for a reason. Like let's tell a story and put it in
Yeah.
context. Yeah.
That's awesome. Excellent. And to kind of pivot a little more here, I kind of want to talk about your experience with like teams and like team management, but also like just being a part of one. So in your professional experience, I'm sure you have experience in being a part of a team and also probably coordinating people in teams. Would you like
Yeah.
to talk about that? Like maybe just with like your past in like a DreamWorks or whatnot, and then now. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Well, actually, before I answer, maybe kind of I'll start with a question, which is,
Mhm.
um, in your guys' experience, how much of that collaborative kind of management, I don't know, those types of responsibilities, how large of a part does it play in your daily work?
Nico, Charlotte, would you like to answer that one too? I'll give them the floor for a second.
Uh, I'll give Charlotte the opportunity to answer first, and then I can sort of hop in.
Okay. I would say it plays a huge role. I mean, specifically this year, there's been so many things where like I've kind of had, at least me personally, I've had to kind of step into a position where I've been the person who's had to take charge of like a tech team, which has been a very new experience.
Yeah,
And it's been a fun learning curve, but it's definitely played a huge role in this year, and it's going to play a huge role my senior year too, I'm sure.
mm,
Yeah, and I'd say definitely in my experience as well, like just especially with rigging, you kind of realize that like the team obviously is like in my opinion like the biggest part of a lot of things and how well they turn out, and especially like as a rigger you kind of have to have your hands in like a lot of different like pies sort of, and so like you
mhm,
realize like you're looking at the model and like you'll realize maybe the topology looks off or something like that, and then as you're looking at it you might realize like, oh, that's kind of an issue with the original design because it's impossible to achieve. And so
yeah,
because of that you kind of have to start thinking ahead of time of like you almost introduce yourself to the whole team, show them your reel, show them your portfolio, and be like, this is what I'm like used to. Please feel free to reach out to me because you
mm,
want to make sure that they know that they can talk to you because like
yeah,
you're almost the person who like is gonna first notice all of those issues.
yeah,
And if you don't notice them early, then it's gonna get way later in production. And then suddenly the team is like has no clue what's going on. But you can almost sort of you could have pinpointed it at the beginning if you were sort of like paying a lot more attention. So I feel like at least as a rigging artist, I feel like Charlotte would agree. Like you kind of get like an early view of how
yeah,
the team is doing, and so because of that, you kind of step in a lot earlier, and so it helps to build communication skills a lot.
I
do
would
you
definitely agree.
oh
I would like to add that since we are riggers, we are always rigging models for animators. So I've always been in contact with any animators. There were
yeah,
plenty of times that I needed to make adjustments to any of my all of my rigs.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do you so
You were gonna say, Mark?
those of you who um, are kind of taking on, I guess, more management type kind of responsibilities, are you also simultaneously kind of the individual contributor? You're at the box also like authoring stuff and creating stuff.
So I was gonna say, I'd say at least for example, in my experience, it usually kind of ends up being that way because like you'll have like on your resume, it'll say like lead rigger, but in reality, in smaller fine text, it's sole rigger. So it's kind of like it's like you're lead by de facto because you're the only
Yeah,
one kind of doing it.
yeah,
So I feel like at least like that's what I found, especially on
yeah,
like my capstone and like a lot of stuff I've worked on, where it's like because I'm the only one really doing that, like I kind of have to work on that, and I feel like that's a lot of people's experience, especially where like sometimes you'll help out with like a small project where you're kind of the only person who really knows that. But it's pretty great because I feel like it gives you a lot of opportunity to like you're the only one in charge of that. So it kind of lets you figure out what you're best at and like ahead of time kind of what you know and what you don't
yeah,
know. So
yeah,
I feel like yeah, like usually it ends up being that where like you're kind of the one both working on it and also the one in charge. So you kind of don't have anyone to blame if it doesn't go well, but also like if it goes well, you know exactly what you did right and you can
yeah.
sort of more easily scrutinize that.
Nice, nice. The reason I'm kind of asking a bunch of questions as well is trying to scope the like just to understand your point of view because to answer the question basically, um, uh, yes, I've had a lot of different experiences managing within like internally within a team across cross functionally across teams. Um, I've for Puss in Boots, character effects team was about 44, like locally, just to the studio was like 35 people big. And then there was also, at that time, we had a satellite company in Bangalore, India. So and they were about 15 people big. And so the managerial responsibilities were international and like had all kinds of weird time zone problems and all that stuff too. So that was like a very unique kind of additional complexity. But the point is that um, I find that it's enough of a job to be its own job, right? But it's we seldom in these kind of experiences get to just be that, just either be the manager or be the creator. Yeah, you do have to wear a lot of hats at the same time, and so um, I guess it's like it's a ongoing work in progress experience. I'm doing it now. It's a hell of a lot of work. Um, it's it's wildly essential because can being the connective tissue between multiple teams and people such that you can you know successfully create whatever it is you're creating like wholly hinges on your ability to communicate those ideas and keep everyone you know, kind of going on the same path and connected with the right information or up to date with the right information. So it's a hell of a responsibility, but super important to do and ensure that you're kind of always reflecting on, what didn't go well, what did go well, kind of course correcting as you go. Is there anything else I could say about that at the moment? There was something else. I don't know. Again, going back to my like technical side of life. So like there's a lot of it that's just sneaker net. Like I got to go physically talk to a person about a thing. But my brain is always trying to like systematize stuff. So I'm like literally like like this week I've been in Notion and like various other tools like connecting databases of information such that when I update like the status of a thing, like it gets updated somewhere else so somebody else and some other team knows about it in a kind of an easy way, so in a trackable way. So I kind of try and hit it from both angles. Now I'm just rambling. Is that helpful at all?
No, that's
This is
pretty
a
good.
random question. Do you use Perforce for Unreal or?
I don't technically even know if I know what that is for managing the
Okay.
assets.
Oh yeah, like asset like updating where like things are locked when you're working on it. So it's like when you're in a part of a big team and everything. I was
uh,
just wondering,
Yeah,
but
it's like
so
file
there's
sharing.
for my particular situation right now, there's only two people that use Unreal to do anything at the
okay,
company.
cool.
And
Mhm.
right now we've just got some hokey like here's the file.
Here's
Like
the yeah,
off to the
passing back
side,
and yeah, like
or
nothing
whatever.
too
Yeah.
yes.
Or use yeah.
Old fashioned, yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of like I'm constantly trying to this is the problem, the difficulty, the overwhelmingness of it is exacerbated the more of a startup type company you're in. Very, the smaller the team, the less established kind of processes that are in place to help. Um, the more you have to do as a
Mhm.
leader or as a manager, trying to keep people connected, but also trying to build the process like lay the tracks down as the train's coming through, right?
Mhm.
And so yeah, I'm constantly like trying to figure out ways to connect the bits, like the PMs on our in our
Mhm.
at our company, the project managers, program managers. Um, they love to use the Google suite of tools, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then like the designers and the brand team, they like to use Notion. And
Mhm.
also in the design team, we use all sorts of, content creation tools, which don't really,
Mhm.
these things don't really fit. So it's been really
Mhm.
an interesting opportunity, we'll call it, to try and figure out how to fit them together so that everyone knows about
It's
all
like
the
you're building these, it's kind of like you're building these, branches, like as being a part of this, which is, they, again, like you said, they don't have like a set in stone, like way of doing things. You feel like you kind of have to build that and like,
things.
okay, this is how we're going to go about things. Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
it's
Mhm.
I think one of the harder things is in this kind of in this on this theme of like leadership and management across internally across people and cross functional, um, is everyone has a different way of working and they use different tools to get their job done and be effective. And it'd be a nice world if we could just be like, all right, everyone just used this, and then everyone just used that, and they used it the way you wanted them to use it, but that's never
Mhm.
going to happen. So
Mhm.
it's a very kind of humbling experience to kind of it's almost like social engineering. Like you're trying to have to figure out like how they best work, respect how they're working, and figure out how that all fits together with how you're working and that kind of
Mhm.
thing. So
Mhm. And with communication, yeah, that's a huge thing. I feel like it's worth it for people to, yeah, like at least at this age to get out and like I don't know, learn how to communicate with different types of people because like you said, not everyone does things the exact way you want them to. And I'm sure you have experience with having to deal with people who have again different places, different experiences, different time zones, all that stuff. And yeah, what do you have? Do you have anything to say about that? Like with
I
your
have
guests?
you made me think of a kind of a funny anecdotal story about that. So
Mhm.
I was in a meeting with what we have a team called the solutions team, and they're kind of like a mini SWAT team cross functionally to like they get out ahead of everything and try and I don't know kind of blue sky some solutions such that they can have productive conversations with potential future partners, right? They'll talk to somebody in some other country, and the potential partner will ask them all kinds of like, how does it work? How would it do this? How would it do that? And a lot of the stuff, again, because we're building it as right now, we don't have answers. So they kind of get out there and try and create the answers. Anyway, so I'm in this meeting with these people, and uh, in this meeting I was supposed to basically present this rider experience flow, like the diagram that I had, right, of everything from like a person leaving kind of the original the point of origin, like an airport or whatever, the different signage they would see along the way to kind of guide them to the little effectively bus station, get them in the car, what the kind of car experience is like, and all that stuff. Um, and so I'm doing it. I'm presenting this thing. It's in like a big fig jam diagram thing, walking them through it. And actually, I couldn't even get through it because people just kept having questions, and it was like almost like I don't know. It was just they were getting hung up kind of on the little stuff, and I was really just trying to speak big picture. So I get through that, and I felt like miserable about like, well, I guess I didn't. I got to keep working on this. Like I don't know what happened. Like I thought this was all together, but maybe I didn't present it well or whatever. And so a person I was working with, um, who beforehand had a Google slide deck of effectively the same content, right? Um, and so after I had finished, they turned to him and were like, "Hey, do you want to present what you'd been working on?" And he literally kind of started by saying, "Yeah, Mark and I were working on this. It's basically the same information, but let me just review it real quick." And he went through the slide thing. He wasn't interrupted. He wasn't stopped. They didn't ask him any questions. They were like, "Oh, that was great." I'm like, "What the actual fuck just happened?" Like, I just said that. So it was a real kind of eye-opening experience, like very hands-on and in my face about the people that the audience I was speaking to didn't speak in terms of diagrams and visuals or whatever, like in the way that I had presented it. They spoke in terms of slide decks, they spoke in terms of just text documents, that kind of thing. So it's really, really important to recognize your audience before you, like, even if you think you're the best communicator in the world, if you're communicating to them in a medium they just aren't familiar with and don't get, it's just not going to matter. So I've been trying to remember that lesson daily now as I move forward. It was really surreal. I was like getting gaslit. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? It was crazy.
No, that's very fair. No, I feel, yeah, it definitely feels like, oh, like great. But no, it's, yeah, everyone has different ways of, yeah, like presenting information. That's a good lesson though, like for everyone to know, just because, yeah, like you never, yeah, you're gonna be with different people, different teams. Who knows?
Yeah. Also, just a little kind of bit of I don't know observation that I've noticed is, and you probably have noticed this too. Like you will try and do your best to share some bit of information. And then someone will come to you and ask you for that very bit of information. You're like, but I just shared. Okay, so I'll share it again. And you may end up finding yourself sharing it three, four, five, six times. And it's
Mhm.
frustrating for sure. I guess it's also good to keep in mind that they are probably as overwhelmed and doing too many things just like you are. And it's not really, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just, that's just the nature of being busy and you just don't see everything all the time. So yeah,
Mhm.
mentally prepare yourself for having to share the same thing repeatedly sometimes.
Lots of yeah, reiterating, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's yeah. I'm there right now, definitely. Like even I
Yeah.
myself, I'm like, wait, I need to hear this again, or I need to ask this again. And
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's yeah, you get busy and things are everywhere and
Yeah. I think like just like philosophically from a just trying to think through how humans work, like like it's a cosmically poetic that as soon as they're people's ability to in absorb information radically declines the busier they get. Like their field of vision narrows significantly, right?
Mhm.
And it's exactly the moment when it would be beneficial if it widened, right? Like if lines of communication widened and were strengthened, but that's the opposite of what happens.
Mhm. Exactly. No, it's weird. Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, you kind of get focused on like one thing at a time and you
Yeah.
everything gets thrown out a little bit. That's very fair. Let's see. And for these next questions, I'm gonna probably hand it off to Nico and Charlotte of the Rigging Union. That's a little more focused on like technical stuff, rigging stuff.
Sure.
So yes.
Oh, Charlotte, I know that you specifically sort of put together the first question, so if you want to lead into that.
Yeah. The first thing I wanted to start with off with, after looking at your portfolio and your work history, was how do you think like the character effects and rigging go hand in hand? How, in your experience, like did those two mesh together?
Sorry,
Broad
my
question.
first response was a laugh because this is almost a little unrelated, but I'll try and be quick about it. I was while I was at DreamWorks, I had this. I actually transitioned to product design while I was at DreamWorks the last few years, and I got to help build the tools that they use to create the movies. And one of the tools I was working on, the rigging team used, and I remember us having deployed kind of an initial version, and they they started kind of making feature requests that kind of were peculiar to me. And they were like, well, why doesn't this field do this one little thing? And so as I dug in, I realized that the tool had like had a little ability to add a comment to the thing you were checking in, right? And the rigging team wanted to use that to effectively fire off some automated script to process the data that they were checking in. And they were wondering why it didn't like do that. And I'm like, well, because it's a comment field. It's like that's not for like adding odd processes to stuff. But it was just kind of like it was just kind of a funny like experience to realize like that's the audience I'm dealing with. These are very technical people. They have a very kind of specific agenda. Um, and yeah, it was like get used to it. That's how they are, and it's wonderful. Um, so I think I think rigging like effects to bring it back to what was I think what Nico might have mentioned earlier, um, is kind of this intersection of all departments. Like you're kind of a place where geometry, surfacing, lighting sometimes, the rigging, all the things are have to come together and work so that you can actually do a thing. And you're the kind of the first person that sees it together and can go, okay, well, there's an issue with this and an issue with that and whatever. And then you have to kind of um, communicate outwards to and start having conversations about like, well, how do we get it all to work together? Um, uh, I think that all of those relationships, especially the rigging ones, I kind of have a little bit of a secret favoritism to the more technical oriented people. Um, were at least at my time at DreamWorks was great, and I always kind of drift everywhere I've ever worked. I kind of have I'm more fond of and have good, really strong relationships with like the engineers, for example. Um, uh, but it was also just challenging on my own part because it's it's like rigging to me, like character rigging, is like black magic because it's like it's like you kind of have an idea of like what's going on in there, but you don't exactly know what's going on in there, and only the rigging team and then we had kind of a proprietary tool on top of it was like truly could like like fix things or make the character bend the way you wanted it to and the geometry to deform. We had on Puss in Boots that was actually really it was interesting and kind of I was a bit of an awe. We had that one of our characters was Humpty Dumpty, so it was just an egg and it had arms and legs and it like so it had no shoulders. Um, uh, and so there was like this real kind of like I remember for weeks and months having great conversations with them and also modeling and all these people like, okay, so how do we make clothes work on an egg? Like, because he had like a little vest and like a shirt, and like you wanted it to they wanted them to slide like over each other in kind of a certain way, but like you didn't like it. I don't know. It was just really easy to make it look weird, even though it's an egg, because already we're off to the races of it being weird. Um, but it was just fascinating to be in those conversations with them and that like we'll ask them like kind of like a more artistic like can this happen and then for a minute they'll talk in rigging speak and be like well this is a problem and this is a thing and I can't do this and we could try this other thing 6 weeks and you're like I mean I don't know what to, like, okay like I know it's complicated I guess this is how long it takes but then they would come out and it would be like oh my god that looks like a if an egg with clothes was a real thing that looks like it okay amazing.
I did have a question sort of related to that was like you mentioned sort of how it can be kind of confusing, sort of like as an effects artist, sometimes talking to ring people. And I feel like a lot of people talk that way about ringing in general, where they're like, I have no clue what's going on. It makes no sense whatsoever. But I feel like, especially like as a rigger, for me, it feels the opposite, where I'm like, this is the only thing that makes any sense to me. So that's why I'm doing this, because the rest of it is
Yeah.
complete like gibberish to me. And so I was wondering sort of like I guess in the time that you've spent, especially at DreamWorks, and like other work, like and you mentioned like you have worked with rigging and all this before, like yourself. How do you sort of approach, I guess, getting your hands sort of into other people's fields and sort of trying to figure out a little bit of the lingo that they use? Like, what are the steps you usually take? And especially because, like, obviously you moved from somewhere where you worked a really long amount of time, DreamWorks, to now working at a company. So even if the lingo sort of is the same internally to a degree. Like it's going to change somewhat just going from one company to another. So how do you sort of reorient yourself to these new environments, both like field wise, company wise, etc., to sort of communicate with people better?
That's a great question. So, hmm, I guess that's kind of I'm thinking about it in two parts. One is um, at least one of the reasons I think effects was a fit for me was because you were in that position where you could kind of get experience in all the little things. When I started at DreamWorks, everyone was given a mentor, and I was given a mentor. And I remember one of the first thing he had been there for a really long time. He's a super genius, like hyper nerd guy. Um, but I remember one of the first things he said was kind of tongue in cheek, like, what they say about the effects department is that in a pinch we could do your job. And I know that's kind of like a bit of a dickheaded thing to say, but there's a kernel of truth to it because again, it's the intersection of a lot of stuff, and in a pinch, you're kind of like fixing stuff on the fly, and maybe you can get away with it. And if you can, great, you just fix it there. If not, then you got to kick it up to somebody who can fix it properly. Um, so I got experience in a lot of different things, right? And for me, I love that. I love learning about all the different things and kind of getting under the hood and figuring out the why of it. And then because I think once you get like you can kind of get down at that level and kind of understand the why, then you can bend it to your will, right? Then you can I love unblocking my creativity. So if whatever I think of, I want to be able to create. And that now translates into kind of a physical world. Like if I think of a app that controls some lights in my house, like and I want to make my own kind of version of it, like with the advent of AI and vibe coding and all this stuff, you could pretty much do almost anything you could think of. Um, and it helps if you have maybe a little bit of curiosity and experience to kind of get under the hood and learns kind of the basics. That way, it's not just leaving it all up to AI, for example. Um, where am I going with this? Uh, the I guess the point is that uh, over time I have kind of been like a katamari of like all these like different types of disciplines like engineering and like physical engineering or prototyping and Figma and all this stuff. And so I know enough to like break stuff and get some stuff done, but I'm like not I wouldn't call myself like an engineer, for example. Um, and when I move from company to company, because over the course of my career or whatever, my creative career, I have picked up little stuff here and there and tried to build stuff on my own. Um, when there are teams that align with some of that background that I have, the conversations are really easy, right? Like if there's always usually an engineering team, and they might be using a different kind of stack of code or whatever like that, but I know enough now that I can kind of speak in an intelligent way and ask them stuff like, oh, well, like if it's like a WebSocket thing, can we do this and can we do that? And they'll sometimes be like, "Are you a designer?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, part time." And then so we can. It's like sometimes I'm wrong, but at least I'm like they're like, "Oh my God, he kind of knows what he's talking about a little bit." So that super helps. If I'm going to a place where there isn't that group of people that has a background in that thing, like where I'm at now, there's no character rigging team. Um, I mean, then it becomes less applicable, but like in my own mind, like I can go, okay, well, this is like stuff I remember about character rigging, and I can like use that to like, accomplish whatever I'm doing. And then if someone is curious about what it is that I'm doing, I'll just back to the other part of the conversation, acknowledge that that's a different audience, and I need to kind of translate it on the fly to something that's you know digestible to them. So I won't go like, well, I added this IK and I did I wouldn't go like that. I would be like, and sometimes depending on how high of a person you're talking to, I'll be like, I rigged it, or we'll just call it magic. We'll just leave it alone. Like, so let's move on to the conversation. So, um, again, kind of like a squirrely answer, but over time you kind of acquire information. Sometimes you get to a new place where you find your people and you can like talk directly to them and lean on that experience that you have. Sometimes not so much, and you just kind of have to, I don't know, wrap it up nicely so that they get it and they're okay.
I did have one small follow-up before passing back over to Charlotte, which was you sort of mentioned again, like you like really like to sort of learn a lot of other things and with like a lot of other disciplines. And I was wondering, especially like for example, if you're working somewhere at DreamWorks, where we have a professor here, Timothy Steele, who'd worked there, and he mentioned how some of their systems, especially like their rigging system and things like that, are like super different from what you would have outside of that company, and it's like a lot harder to get into. And so, especially when let's say like your onboarding time is already passed, you're a year or two into working there and you think the rigging there is really cool and you want to get into it, but they're using a really different software. Sort of how do you approach that, especially when it's not a software that's available to you outside of studio hours? So like do you carve out time during your day, like maybe take an hour at the end of the day to go over at their station and use their computers? Like sort of how do you approach
Mhm.
that? Because it's kind of difficult to balance your time.
That's interesting. So one way to answer that is you should as you progress in your careers and you work at different places or whatever, you're going to always encounter it's a different system, it's a different tool. God forbid it's proprietary and like you're saying, you had zero access to it before. Um, like you're just kind of having to start from 0 to 1 in a way. But the common thread is your ability to think like a rigger. That's going to be true no matter where you work, right? And so if you're kind of like interviewing for a place and it's some software that you had no idea about, it kind of if they don't hire you because you don't have familiarity with that software, that's like, screw them. Because that doesn't like how would you possibly get it? Like they should hire you based on your ability to solve problems as a rigger. They should hire you on your experience of rigging whatever it is that you've rigged in your time, like quadrupeds and weird monsters and this and that, and like did it look believable and did it look or whatever the goal was at the time, right? So I would say focus on your skills as a kind of more abstracted skills as a rigger, um, like kind of general purpose problem solving. And then when you get it, you land the job or you get on the project, whatever it is, and they have their own thing. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a matter of like logging hours, just so you're familiar with it. But like in the end, like at least for me, like because my background is pretty varied, and I especially started kind of in effects where that's varied in and of itself. Lots of different apps, lots of different this and that. They're all kind of the same in a weird way. Like it's just a matter of like in your head, okay, I need IK, right? You just have to figure out like where the button is. Like where the hell is the IK button? Like what is the like the manual step to just put it on the thing that I want to put it on? Like once you know that, like and you have some sort of direct application to do it a couple of times, I think you should be fine. It's more the problem solving that's the problem. If you don't know that, that's I think that's a bigger I would see that as if I was like hiring somebody like, oh well, he knows the crap out of some Houdini, but like I couldn't have him on my team because I have to like handhold you know them through like the process of rigging a thing, even though they know all the buttons.
All right, sorry, I was taking a moment to unmute myself, but yeah, okay, thank you. That helps a ton. And I was gonna
Yeah,
say, I'm gonna pass it back over to Charlotte because I kind of took up a lot of time there, and so I want Charlotte to get a chance to like go through because they wrote in a lot of really interesting questions.
sure.
You're good, you're good. I'm realizing a lot of these questions have already been answered as you've been talking, so I'm like hurriedly looking through my document.
Oh, no worries.
Since you've been talking so much about like having your hand in a ton of different things and looking for people who like know how to problem solve, how did your time kind of interacting with a lot of different teams inspire the like production tools that you built? Whether that's at Dreamers or at any other company or what you're doing now, like how does your experience working with all these different things it, impact your building tools and what you look for a problem that you want to solve?
Oh, well, that's slightly different, two different things there. Let me think about
Sorry,
that
yeah,
for a second. No
impacted
worries.
question.
No worries. um, well, maybe I'll go back to front. So the things that pique my curiosity, pique my interest are, well, I mean, I guess the simplest answer is stuff I've not done, or stuff that I feel like maybe I didn't get enough of it. Like I got a little taste of it, and I want more. Um, uh, I guess my brain's a little ADHD about those types of things. It's kind of gotta stay stimulated. But uh, but how does all the various context of information over time inform like the things that I end up creating, whether it be production tools or otherwise. Um, I guess it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because I think having years under my belt of like interacting with these different teams and getting to know them and their points of view and the things they look for, doing as much of it on my own to some degree just to get a taste of it as well. Uh, I think it allows me to get to 80% pretty quick. Like I can get you directionally correct pretty quickly, which is probably why I can still get jobs nowadays. But uh, I think the the problem with it is that my mind goes in a lot of different directions at once, and it tends to kind of uh, I don't know how to put it. Like it races, and I want to do all the things, and I'm thinking about all the people and all the things, and I want to put it all in like an app or something like that, or an experience or some visual, um, and it gets a little confused. So it's something that I've been working on. I don't know, last couple of years or so is trying to kind of like respect it. Like, okay, we want to capture like the frenetic like creativity. Like we want to capture all the ideas and stuff. But can we organize it too? Can we like can we stage the release of these things? Can we stage like the addition of features or functionality? And that's been kind of a new skill that I'm trying to learn and flex in my days. Yeah, balancing act, I suppose. I think that's sorry, one last thought. I think that uh, I mean, I don't know the kind of the environment in which you guys work, but I mean, I don't know if you have technically like a boss, so to speak. Um, but but that's always going to be helpful to whoever your boss is in the end, and that is uh, even if your like little world is like a hot mess, it makes sense to you, but like if anyone were to look at it from the outside, they'd be like, "Oh my God, this person's insane." Um, it's what you kind of communicate upwards. So like if you like again, one the kind of newer thing that I'm doing is I'm trying to like I have this layer of thoughts and ideas and work that's just kind of all over the place, but it makes sense to me. And then there's this layer that like I try and only let like my boss see. Like it's like oh he's got like milestones and he's got like dates and it's kind of organized and oh great I won't worry about him and I can see the status of things. So yeah, kind of again it's like it's just a good skill to try and have that layer of communication, that layer of like organization. It helps you too, but it's also once you kind of accrue goodwill at your company with your bosses and the people that work with you, that you kind of you actually also gain freedom. They kind of let you alone, right? They kind of trust that you're going to do the thing. We don't have to worry about this person. So that's I think that's gold too, at least for me.
That makes complete sense that, yeah, they would just let you be at that point. I would like to get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, you got
Um,
it takes a bit to earn, but it's awesome.
yeah, absolutely. Building kind of off of that idea of communication, I'll just have like one more question before I pass it back to Nico and Kate. Like when you're talking about like communication and that sort of thing, how do you kind of manage communication between like teams? If you're working with like multiple teams of people that don't really interact with each other, if you're kind of like as like a middle person, like how do you communicate the needs back and forth? I guess
That's
in a sense, because
interesting.
like if you're like in a effects or rigging pipeline and you have to talk to like the modeler and the animator and the effects and the lighting people, like how those people don't necessarily all know the same skill sets that or what they're doing is impacting the other team. How would you kind of facilitate that kind of communication?
I think I understand the question. So I think something that we brought up in this chat was probably a very useful tool, which is start by telling the story, right? Tell everyone, get the people that need to be in the same room together for in different ways that you need to, and start the conversation, frame it from the story. Why are we all what is it that we're all collectively trying to achieve, right? I'm trying to achieve an egg with a little vest on that moves reasonably, right? Like it looks reasonable. And then that kind of sets the stage for them to kind of go, oh, okay, what is that? Just right off the bat, without even having said anything else, they're like kind of framing it like, okay, these are the things in my head, in my world, that I can kind of contribute to this conversation. And then you kind of go from there, I think. It was kind of a short answer.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I feel like you kind of answered most of my questions on top
Okay.
of like answering the other ones. So Nico and Kate, can I just pass it back to you guys?
Sorry, I was trying to find my unmute. I was like, yeah, it's perfect. Unless Caitlin, unless you have any other questions, I have a couple. If you don't have any, but otherwise, feel
Go
free to
right
go ahead with yours
ahead.
first.
You are perfect. Go
Um,
right ahead.
okay, all right, let me just unmute myself. I was holding space, but let me pull up. So one of the main things I sort of had, I had a couple questions, but one of the ones was sort of like right now, like this is like after your time at DreamWorks, and I was wondering, like looking back to whatever was one of the earliest projects you worked on, or maybe like one of the most particularly challenging or insightful, sort of if you could travel back in time, and work on it like from scratch from the beginning, like what do you think sort of would change? Not just obviously from like, oh, I now know how to solve this technical issue, obviously, but like from like attitude, like the way you approached it, or maybe like sort of how Caitlin and Charlotte are talking a lot about communication. Maybe you communicated a certain way and you're like, that was totally wrong. This is like a much more efficient way. Like, sort of, what do you feel has changed the most? And then maybe vice versa. what do you think would stay the exact same? Like, what do you think was like, I figured it out then, totally works now, and like
Hmm.
that's a gospel.
And this is like, going back and knowing then what I know now.
Yeah,
You-
like take
Yeah.
you right now, put you back at the beginning of that, but the movie isn't made. What do you
But
think
and
would
I don't
change, or
have
what would stay the same?
and I don't have any of my current tools.
You don't have your current tools. You don't have your current
Damn
tech
it.
tools. It's more so like it's like attitude stuff and like
The,
like
the,
you as a
the
person.
thing existed 25 years ago. Not to date myself, but yeah, let's see. That's a great question. What would change and what would stay the same? Um, hmm. I think so. I'm not the sharpest tool in the toolbox, right? I mean, I've done school and everything, but like compared to the people that I work with, I'm not, I'm like a carrot. I think that one thing that would stay the same and what I've used the whole time to kind of bring myself up maybe to their level that they're maybe just gifted at, is just work ethic. So, just stay kind of excited and curious and hungry about creating good being images or tools or rigging or whatever it is, and it helps when you're excited to do it, but like just work hard at it. Like just, and I remember putting in extra hours and, just trying to dig in so that I could keep up with everybody, but also just because it was fun and, just I don't know, like kind of not fuck it up. Like people are relying on you, like do well, right? Like because to make the movie or the game or the whatever, make the quality excellent, they're relying on you, so you don't want to screw it up. So work hard. That would stay the same. I would keep working hard. Um, the thing that would change, I think, is um, I think if in this hypothetical, if I could bring back, I would have more confidence, especially if I bring, going back then with what I know now, right? So I think I could have been more confident. I think I could have been, that means that would be applied to, communication, who I talked to, how I talked, uh, being confident in, uh, more self-confident, like the quality that I was producing. It's kind of, like just trying, there's part of me that's humble and the part of me that tries to be modest and stuff like that. But I think I would go back and try and be more confident and be more like, kind of like, not care. That's not right. It's more just like recognize it. It's like fun and like just let it rip. Like just if you have some crazy idea, like do it. Like I don't know, I don't know, um, if you get really excited about something that's not necessarily on track, but you still think it's going to be really sweet to add in there, like do it. Like I don't know, just like kind of have fun with it, I guess, and be confident. Those would be kind of the two things that I would think of off the top of my head. Not so much the tech, not so much the problem solving or anything. Yeah.
No, I said, sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. I was saying, no, that's a really good point, and I think, yeah, like it's good to hear. I guess that like honestly, looking back, like if you would just be more confident, because I feel like sometimes it's easy to get lost in the weeds and be like, I don't know anything, I shouldn't, be pushing. And so it's good to know that like maybe it's like okay to afford yourself a little more sort of, I guess, goodwill than you might give yourself, especially starting a new position.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just a simple kind of reframing of that helps in life. Like I do it now, just like keep like remind yourself like no one knows, nobody knows what they're doing in life. Like everyone is making it up as they go, right? So that's true. Making the movies and rigging anything like everyone's just learning just like you. So like why not? Like have fun. Like what does it matter? This is what I tell my kid. Like when he's out there playing, he likes basketball and he's on a team and he gets really nervous about like taking a shot because he might miss. I'm like, dude, you're not, it's like not your job. You're not getting paid. Everyone else sucks too. Like, what does it matter? Just shoot the ball. Like, just like have fun with it. So Anyway,
It's very hard when we're young to not like, yeah, act like everything's the end of the world, I guess, a little bit. Maybe not as
nothing. Yeah,
extreme as when
lives are not
we're,
at stake with what we do. Lives are not
If
at
I don't
right.
get this shot down, my head will explode.
stake.
No, because sometimes even yeah, like with our capstone work or our student thesis, whatever you want to call it, like it is a little like you kind of like have to lean back and be like, hey, like nobody's dying, nobody's
Yeah,
lives are on the
yeah,
line,
yeah,
like
yeah. I mean,
like mhm,
it's a little bit of a line to walk, right? Because like in the
mhm,
grand scheme of things, like it's not life and death, but it's important. I mean, this is what you have chosen to be passionate about, or not chosen, but this is your calling, right? You're doing it and you want it to be good. So to some level, like it's important and it matters, and
mhm,
you should, act accordingly. But like, yeah,
mhm.
it's, you know, we're making games and movies for people to enjoy themselves. So like, yeah,
Exactly. At the end of the day,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Uh, I had like maybe one last question, but before I ask, I want to make sure like I know we're kind of nearing the end of our time, so I wanted to know like sort of like up to you, I guess, like how you're feeling about time, because we can also just move straight to opening the floor for some other people to ask questions if you are short on time. But if you have any extra time at all, we'd love to like chat longer. So up
I'm
to you,
actually
no
open.
issue.
Yeah, keep
Oh,
keep
okay.
keep going. Yeah, I can go a little longer.
Okay. All right. I had like one or two more questions, and then after that, if nobody else, obviously Charlie and Caitlin have any more questions, I'd love to open the floor to people to ask because I feel like there's a lot of people here who definitely would love to pick your brain. So I guess the main two questions I have, first one, was a little more specific, which was obviously like as somebody who you said like you've worked like here and there, you love to work with like pick up things, and you said you've gotten advice from people, and so like the same way that like maybe like when you're first starting rigging, people give you like advice of like little tips that like you don't realize, like, but they completely change and reframe the way you work and they're super helpful. What would you give as like the guy who knows everything, or well, not who knows everything, like you said, like knows a lot about effects and that type of stuff to people on us, like riggers kind of want to dabble in effects, but we don't know much. Like, what would be your advice of like little tips that we might not realize, but like are super helpful, at least in your experience?
You, as you were asking the question, my mind drifted to this one piece of advice that I was given, which is it doesn't exactly answer your question, but I would be remiss not to share it. Um, Again, so the same mentor who said that kind of douchey thing, um, but it's not necessarily wrong. Um, Also said this other thing to me. So I was working on like it must have been like my first effect when I got there. It was on Madagascar, and there was like I think Alex was like he washed up on shore and he wanted to wipe the sand off of some wood plank, and or maybe it was something else. Maybe it was like when the boat turned and like there was like a spray of water or whatever. I don't know what it was. Um, but I'm like working on it for like a couple of days, and he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, can you show me what you're working on? Like, I'd love to know, like, see it and answer any questions." So I like showed him. He's like, "So what are you working through?" And then I kind of told him my challenges and where I was at. And he just kind of thought for a second. I think one of my problems was like at the time, this is like, super long ago, like I was struggling to make like it was like a simulation that would have required like hundreds of thousands of particles or something like that, but like I had like 10,000 at max because of just the way the compute was. Um, so I was like telling him I was kind of expressing this kind of challenge, and he was like, "Oh, it's kind of like I see you're kind of like up at a limit there, and it's taking a really long time to sim what you got." And he stopped for a second, and he just kind of looked at me and he said, "Why don't you just put them where you want them?" I was like, "Huh?" He's like, "Well, you're like doing a lot of work to like simulate them into a place, and it's taking a really long time because you're maxing out the ability to sim and all this stuff. I mean, they're just points in space. Just put them where you want them." And like I've never forgotten that. I've applied it to like so many things. To me it meant I was overcomplicating it. To me it meant I was being very literal. Like I was trying to simulate the sand off the plank or like over time, like it really would happen, or this wash of water from a wave or whatever. Like, but I didn't have to because it's all like it's just points in space. So that was my problem, right? Like the rigging's a little different, but um And so then I did. So then and it was like much easier. I was like I used like a fraction amount of the particles that I needed, and then I just like deterministically put them where I wanted them to be, wanted them to be, and it worked out. And so I just as I've worked and anything that I've ever done, I can't tell you how many times I've just kind of been like, working really hard on a path or something like that, and it's getting kind of complicated. And sure enough, I'll think about what he said. I'm like, just put them where you want them. Like, and it's like you can. I mean, it's not even applicable just to work stuff. Like, it's life stuff. Like, we tend to overcomplicate stuff. Just like, just like you don't. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Just directly do the thing you're trying to do. Like, don't go all over the place to get there. So, it doesn't really answer your question, but man alive, has that been like to me, just like a really profound statement, which I think was really a benign statement at the beginning. Um, yeah, I don't know to specifically answer your question. Wait, what was the question? Like it was like what
Well,
advice about like getting
I
into
guess like sort of like just like tips you have like as an effects artist. But honestly, I'd say like that's a pretty great answer. I mean, to get to know the mentality applies because especially like one of our professors, Ahmed, like especially like working with him, like he's kind of told us before where it's like don't waste your time making a feature nobody's gonna use, which sort of like applies to that mentality where it's like if you're trying to achieve a specific look and you know that, it's sometimes better to literally just add it in as a blend shape or add it in as like a slider as opposed to making some super complicated setup that the animators can then pose into that where it's like you spent 7 weeks building this and they're going to use it for one shot for one pose. They already know what it's going to look like. So it would have been easier to just do it by hand and just put it in as a button. So I get
that's
what you mean where
also
sometimes, yeah.
that's also a very powerful piece of advice, which is try and select the appropriate solution. Like there's a lot of solutions for any given thing, Brett, but maybe you're running out of time. You don't have a lot of time. Maybe, the thing's only going to be used every once in a blue moon. Like solve it appropriately. Like, okay, just direct blend shape. Take me 10 minutes. I'm out, right? Like, and then people can move on and unblock them. So yeah, that's a lot of merit too.
And then for my last question before we open up the floor, I was going to say it's a bit different for the rest of them, but it's just something I was really curious about, which is like obviously you've worked on movies that like a lot of us have seen before, a lot of us enjoyed, really loved, and stuff like that. And so I was wondering, what is like a moment working on these films, specific shot, scene, etc., that people may not realize, but like either meant a lot to you, it was a lot of fun working on, a story about it, etc., that you may not get a chance frequently to share. And so
Hmm.
then that like you would think would just be fun to tell us about. Like it could have been a really cool thing you figured out or like just a fun thing you guys did on the shot, something like that. Like I'm just curious, what was like your personal experience that stood out
Oh,
on a
that's a good
film?
question. Um, the one that popped into my head first was what I think was my last shot that I did as an effects artist. I worked as an effects artist for a while, and then I kind of took a break to be a supervisor and then this other type of supervisor, well, whatever. And then I got back to I went back to being an effects artist for one last show on the Crudes, and um, so the last shot that I did is just kind of obviously he's a little sentimental to me, but it was also kind of like my most me shot that I did, my most me effect. If I were to compare myself then to myself now, so the shot is it was on Crudes, and there was this some I don't know what the hell was going on in the movie. I can't remember, but basically the main character was sitting on the edge of this cliff, and they were something had happened to get them there, and they were like, "Whoo, that was a relief," or whatever. They were talking amongst themselves, and behind them came this like huge like rolling seismic wave in the earth, and it kicked them off the edge and had them tumble down into the chasm. Um, so and this was I think my first real meaty experience in Houdini was on Crudes, and so I had created this system that uh, there's like a single input like the animation of the seismic wave. And when you hit, if you're familiar with Houdini and how it's like a dependency chain, like basically you hit go and the thing cooks everything. So I had it like automatically cook like the boulders that it created and the way it threw them up into the air, the dust that came off the boulders, the little debris that came off the boulders, like all the things was just like procedurally derived from this like one domino that I pushed. It took forever to like get an iteration out because it would be like on the farm for like a day and a half. but it was great because I was just like, go. And then I would go get a coffee for a while and do other things. And I like, check on it every periodically. Um, so yeah, so that one, I think that one I would call out as uh, one of my highlights, and just mostly just because it was sentimental, and I think it I think it kind of speaks to my technical systematized brain in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. That's like exactly what I was hoping for. That's really cool to hear about, and hopefully, like if I ever go back and rewatch, the Croods, I get to see that and I'd be like, oh, that's cool. That's what he worked on. So
Yeah.
thank you, appreciate it. I was gonna say, Caitlin, Charlotte, unless you guys have other questions, do we want to open sort of the floor to a couple questions from people before we wrap things up?
We can totally, yeah, open the floor. That would be wonderful. Everyone who's in here, if you want to either just put something in the chat or if you want to turn on your microphones, whatever you feel comfortable with.
There's a
I
question
will
that
Right.
say if it, I
go
would say
ahead.
if,
Yeah.
if you're gonna turn on your microphones, I'm pretty sure Zoom has the ability, but like
Mm,
probably like raise your hand or like send a message in the
yeah,
chat. Like I have a question, just so then that way we don't have multiple people turning on their mics
true.
at once. But Nicholas, you were speaking
Exactly.
first, so if you want to go ahead first.
Thank you. I'm very curious to hear your predictions about the VFX and animation company. How do you see the state of the industry evolving in the next, let's say, 10 years?
That's a good question. I was actually anticipating something along those lines, and I was like a little anxious because uh, on one hand, it's been a minute since I've been in the trenches with y'all to know the exact vibe of the industry right now. I'll try and answer that. Um, so on one hand, I think I'd like to think with my kind of dotted line knowledge to it, uh, is that I think we're still in a place where companies are locally kind of small, right? Like in the States, they're very small, like keeping a very small core staff team to do, I don't know, heavy lifting and management of stuff, and then outsource all over the place to all these other little companies to kind of do the bulk of the work. So I don't exactly see that changing. It kind of, if that were left alone to its own devices, um, and it has its own, you know, I don't know. Doesn't make a person feel great. That's one of the reasons I was like back in the day, kind of looking at the landscape and going, "Oh boy, I don't know how long I can be able to keep stringing this together for working at DreamWorks or whatever." Because I always wanted to work at like Industrial Light and Magic too, and I never got to. But they're like one of the first companies to just be like very hard to get into that core team, and mostly outsourced to other stuff. So there's that. But then there's also like, and I don't know if you were kind of alluding to this or hoping that I mentioned it, but like there's the whole like AI thing, right? Like there's what are we all going to do about AI as creators? Um, so I use AI so much in my daily job. A lot of it mostly like project planning and kind of like, I don't know how you all feel about what I'm about to say, but kind of like philosophizing with it. It's kind of scary, but I'm doing it. Like just kind of like, what do you think about this? And then it gives me my its opinion. Um, but I also use it for like, image generation, some image editing, that kind of thing. I've attempted to use it for motion. Have That's the least successful that I've experienced that I've had in the AI world. My hot take, my 2 cents is this on AI in the industry, um, which I don't think like you see all these posts on like LinkedIn or wherever. I don't think those people posting necessarily have the context of actually being in the trenches and doing the work. And that is, I think you and I know that when you're in a production environment and you're trying to arrive at a specific thing, like a look, a motion, or whatever it is, feature, functionality. Um, well, I'll come back to that. AI is not great at that. It's very hard, at least in the current landscape of AI tools, to get it to edit a specific thing in a specific way. So I think that Um, so I know that people are trying to make inroads into that and creating kind of like dependency graphs to guide AI to like edit certain bits of an image or whatever. But I feel like that they're unknowingly heading back to where we're at already, which is humans at the box making decisions to arrive at some very specific art direction, right? So I kind of see AI as a great tool for like concept artists to maybe slug something in like 80% directionally right really quickly. But I don't see it replacing that last 20% or that last mile, right? I think that's still going to be, it still requires humans to make decisions and walk it into the end zone. The exception of coding. I think it's probably going to be able to nail that on its own eventually. But yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
No, that's very true. No, I agree. I feel like at the end of the day, we're always going to need human touch for those things. And for at least in the process, like in at least to supervise these tools too, which is, a good thought.
And I saw just as like a commentary on that. Like I was driving down the road and I saw a billboard advertisement for an AI platform whose job it was to like just keep I don't know like check the check other AI platforms like accuracy. If I was like I'm like, did we just like what just happened? Like, wait, you can't like how if the one AI we can't trust, why would you make another AI that we trust to like judge the other one? Like that, I can't.
It's a loop. It's just
What
a
silly world
constant
are we
loop.
in right now? Yeah.
It's like
Um,
making things to make problems that we can sell more things to fix those
right,
problems.
yeah,
And
yeah. It
that's
was
that's like in everything, like in
yeah,
every like even with just like phones and like every just technology, it's just we kind of peaked at a certain area and it's a little
yeah,
not completely, but it's kind of like what can we sell to people to fix the problems we're making now and like
yeah.
and
You know that
that's
that brings us
yeah.
kind of back to what we were talking about earlier, which is you know potentially overcomplicating things when we don't need to.
Mhm.
Um, that's another great tip I would throw out there, which is try and always start from a place of what problem am I really trying to solve, right? Sometimes you
Mhm.
get lost real quick and off tangent, and then comedy ensues. But yeah, so if you can just kind of like center yourself again and like, what is it that I'm really trying to solve? And it might help you get to like, oh, it's just a blend shape. Done. I'm out. Yeah.
Mhm. Exactly. Let's see. Do we have any more questions from anyone here? Ooh, whose hand is raised?
I have just one more.
Oh yeah, of course. Go ahead.
What was, and this is really relevant to us, what was the biggest challenge you faced when you were just starting out?
Oh, yeah, it's the catch 22 of needing experience to get into the industry, but not not having the experience to get into this. Like it's like, but how do I get the experience if I can't get into the industry? Um, I feel like that's the kind of the quintessential initial hurdle. Um, uh, uh, Again, I think so. I mean, we could meet again sometime and we could do portfolio reviews, and I could like try and like you know, offer some advice if I could on those and help you all out. But like my TLDR would be like people who are trying to hire you are not fooled by you padding your portfolio with stuff just to make it look like there's stuff, make it look like you have more experience than you do. They know that you're right out of school. They know there's not really a whole lot of actual industry stuff that you could put on there, for example. So I think just I know it's scary, but just kind of be okay with that. Like just pick the best stuff, a couple of things, and again, kind of lean into the fact that I mean, just the fact that you guys have these types of get-togethers and talk about these types of things and have these projects that are kind of cross-functional. You're like, I mean, I had this similar experience at the academy where it was like a pseudo production environment, and like just be like that's great experience to put down on a resume, right? And it's very transferable. It's not literally in production experience like at a full company, but like it's as close as any student's ever really going to get, right? So short of an internship or something. Um, so just I think as scary as it is, just be okay with just a handful of little things that you can throw on there visually. Um, the resume is going to be probably pretty short, but that's okay. Like we all know, like you're young and just starting out. Like what, like so, it's going to be all right. Just stay with it.
Two things to say, and one's a question, one's a thing. Actually, three maybe, but sorry, lots to say. I was gonna say, yeah, like again, I try to always like, at least with, my meetings, like I try to throw out there, like, yeah, like if if the film stuff, because a lot of us want to go into film and TV and all that stuff,
Mhm.
but like if that doesn't end up like work, or if it doesn't like fit your whatever, your lifestyle, whatever, that's okay. Like I've met, even like the other week I met a graduate from here. She was an animator, and she's like, yeah, I pivoted and I learned AutoCAD, and now I'm like into architectural design, and she has a job there. And I was like, that's awesome, but it's
Okay.
cool like, 'cause you just, not a lot of people know, like you can kind of like you don't have to limit yourself. Like you never know
There's
where
that
things will
too.
take you
Yeah.
and what you'll learn, you know what I mean? And I think it's cool. Second thing is, oh yeah, for portfolio designs, after this I could totally talk with people, or portfolio design, what am I talking?
Yeah.
Portfolio reviews. If you want to do that for SCAD or whatever, I can talk with some people because they do like bigger events where like I've just seen events where they'll take people like, random people to do portfolio reviews who have experience like you do, for students, or if you just want like a small group thing, whatever works out in the future. Again, that's, if you're open to that, that's so cool.
Mhm.
Um, and then third, shoot, what was the third thing? Oh shoot, I think I forgot.
It'll come to you.
Sorry, it's brains all over the place.
Yeah. No worries.
Let's see. We were talking about, God, yes, sorry. I will,
Getting into the
yeah, someone else keep
industry.
going.
Yeah.
I will try to remember what third thing I was gonna say.
But other than that, I just wanted to thank you very much for your time. It
You're
has been
most welcome.
really
And
helpful.
I maybe Caitlin can share my contact information or whatever, but like I'm open to keeping the communication open and being any type of resource that I can be to you guys to help, because I know I've been there. I know how hard it is, and yeah, happy to help any way I can. So and thank you guys. Like I'm really impressed. Just that, again, like that I had none of this type of structure when I went through college that you guys already have in this way, and how kind of proactive you are at making this kind of production level kind of experience, and the organization you guys have to get together and talk about stuff. So it's just like I'm I'm kind of tickled. Like it's just great to see, and keep going. It's great stuff.
I remember what I was gonna say.
Oh, okay.
I was also going to ask, do you think like even when we graduate, it's still good to like find, because it's kind of nice, we maintain this network of people we know from here, and people sometimes do indie projects, or of course we know students who are still here doing their own projects. Do you recommend still like working on stuff to build your portfolio even afterwards, even when you're doing something maybe that's not what you want to do? Like, what do you recommend for that?
Um, I think I think that fits under the category of like passion projects or personal projects,
Mhm.
and I have seen frequently on job you know openings that they are interested in knowing that and having that on a resume.
Mhm.
It's great, I think, from a hiring person's point of view, that it's like getting into college, right? It's like
Mhm.
they want you to have good grades, and kind of the mechanical, like, oh, this person's going to be going to flourish in our at our school. But we also want to
Mhm.
know, like, them as a human. Like, what else are they into? Like, what other things can they do,
Mhm.
or are they passionate about? And so, yeah, having continuing on projects and continuing the lifelong journey of just like learning stuff and
Mhm.
experiencing stuff like that I would totally put that on our resume and keep doing it. And
Awesome.
and and I thought you were going to ask me if y'all should keep in touch, and I would also highly recommend that, because I would say that's it was a very big part of how I even got a few of my jobs. The fact that
Mhm.
just someone else that I knew that I worked with or it was
Mhm.
in college with, right,
Mhm.
happened to just kind of get out ahead and get in
Mhm.
land a thing. So yeah, the
Awesome.
relationships you guys have right now are gold.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. This was lovely. Other than
Yeah,
that, if
thank
anyone
you.
has anything else they want to talk about, share. No, that was great though.
Yeah,
Thank
happy
you.
to. Yeah, again, happy to, like, if they ever have another need in the future, like, I can always talk again. Like, yeah, I'm open.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll definitely reach back out. Oh, I don't know if it was muted or not because my headset was muted, but I was saying, but yeah, we'll definitely reach back out. We really appreciate it a ton, and thank you so much for taking the
Mhm.
time. Thank you for being willing to go a bit over time because
No
we know
problem.
obviously like you've got a busy
Mhm.
schedule. So thank you so much. Answers were great, and it was really great to get to chat with you, and hopefully we can have you back in the future because that would be super awesome, and I think a lot of people here would really be happy about it. And then obviously with how well this one went, hopefully we can get even more people for the next one.
Yeah, I'm.
Mhm.
You're most welcome. I hope my rambling was somewhat helpful. And yeah, happy to do it again.
Of course. No, you're great. That was lovely. Well, thank you so much. And
Yeah,
yeah, if nothing else, yeah, I think we're good to conclude for today.
great. Well, keep in
Perfect.
touch.
All right,
Good luck,
Yes.
y'all.
bye.
Yeah,
You.
see
Thanks
ya.
Bye.
so much.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.